What if that philosophy you're using to build mental strength is actually setting a trap? So you've gotten into Stoicism. You're the one who stays calm while everyone else is panicking. You don't complain. You focus on what you can control. But have you ever felt a little hollow? Like the more unshakable you become, the more disconnected you feel from your own life. This is the dangerous misinterpretation of Stoic logic that pulls in so many people. We're about to expose how the hunt for tranquility can turn into a toxic trap of emotional suppression, and how to find true resilience without turning into an emotionless statue. In a world that feels more and more chaotic, it's no wonder millions are turning to an ancient philosophy for a sense of control. Stoicism promises to build a fortress for your mind. It offers a blueprint for becoming resilient, finding peace in the middle of a storm, and mastering yourself when everything outside is spiraling. And the appeal is obvious. Who doesn't want to be that person who stays steady when life gets rough? Who doesn't admire someone who can face adversity without breaking? We read the words of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled through plague and war, and we see a model of strength. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And we think, yes, that's what I want. That power. So, we start. We begin applying what we think is Stoic logic. When something bad happens, we tell ourselves it's an external event, it's out of our control, so it shouldn't bother us. We mistake the Stoic idea of apatheia, which is about freedom from destructive passions, for modern apathy, thinking the goal is to feel nothing. We hear advice to keep our emotions in check and take it as a command to lock them away entirely. And that's the seductive promise, that with pure reason, we can build a life free from emotional pain. A life where we're invulnerable. It feels like empowerment. It feels like progress. But for so many, this path doesn't lead to a fortress. It leads to a prison. A quiet, orderly prison of one, where the warden is a warped version of Stoic logic. And that's where the danger begins. The trap is sneaky. It starts with a tiny misinterpretation that just gets bigger over time. You start small. You get an annoying email from a coworker, and using your Stoic logic, you reason it away. Their opinion is an external, you tell yourself. It has no power over me. You don't actually deal with the frustration, you just dismiss it. It feels like a win. Then, a friend cancels plans last minute. You feel that sting of disappointment, but you shove it down. My happiness shouldn't depend on other people, you rationalize. You're confusing emotional suppression with self-reliance. Little by little, you build a habit of using logic not to understand your emotions, but to invalidate them. Before you know it, you're applying this cold logic to everything. Anxiety about a deadline. You label it irrational and push it down. Grief over a loss. You scold yourself for getting attached to something impermanent. You've become a distant observer of your own life, analyzing your feelings but never letting yourself feel them. You tell yourself you've found tranquility, but what you really have is numbness. There's a big difference between a calm lake and a frozen one. They're both still, but one is dead inside. This is the psychological damage of misunderstood Stoicism. Research on emotional suppression shows that when we constantly push our feelings away, they don't just vanish. They get stronger. That anxiety you suppressed comes roaring back as chronic irritability. That grief you ignored turns into a constant feeling of emptiness. Pushing feelings down just makes them more powerful and stressful for your nervous system. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes a ton of effort, and sooner or later, it's going to burst to the surface, usually as burnout, a breakdown, or a sudden, crushing wave of depression. Even worse, this habit disconnects us from other people. When a loved one is in pain, your reflex is to hit them with that same broken logic. You explain why they shouldn't feel sad or angry. You offer solutions instead of empathy. You think you're being rational and helpful, but to them, you just seem cold and dismissive. The great Stoic philosopher Seneca warned, "Remove fellowship, and you will destroy the unity of mankind on which our life depends." And that's exactly what happens. In your quest to become indestructible, you build walls so high that you end up completely alone. You've become a fortress, all right, but you're the only one inside. But here's the most important thing you need to hear: this isn't Stoicism. It's a caricature. It's a modern distortion the original Stoics wouldn't even recognize. True Stoic logic was never about suppressing emotions, it was about regulating them. The Stoics were brilliant psychologists. They knew you can't just flip a switch on your feelings. They made a critical distinction between our first, involuntary reactions and the destructive passions that can follow. That first flash of anger when you're insulted, or that pang of sadness from bad news, the Stoics saw these as totally natural and unavoidable. Even a perfect Stoic sage feels them. The real work of Stoicism happens in the moment after that initial feeling. It's about using reason not to deny the emotion, but to question the judgment that's causing it. As the philosopher Epictetus taught, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. So, what does a healthy, balanced practice of Stoicism actually look like? First, acknowledge the feeling, but don't automatically buy into the judgment. When you feel anxiety flare up, don't pretend it isn't there. Acknowledge it. Say, "Okay, I'm feeling anxious." Then, use your logic to investigate. My mind is telling me this is a total catastrophe. Is that judgment really true? Or am I suffering more in imagination than in reality, as Seneca would say? This creates a gap between the feeling and your reaction. You're not suppressing the emotion, you're engaging with it wisely. Second, practice compassion, not cold detachment. The Stoics weren't antisocial hermits. Marcus Aurelius was constantly writing about his duties to other people. Seneca wrote beautifully about friendship and love, saying you must live for another if you wish to live for yourself. A true Stoic doesn't see someone else's pain and think, that's their problem. They see a chance to be kind. They use their rational mind to offer real support and be a source of strength, not to act like a cold, logical robot. The goal is to feel with others, but not be destroyed by their pain. Think about how a balanced Stoic might handle losing a job. The suppressive, distorted method is to say, this is an external event, it doesn't matter, I feel nothing. That just leads to unprocessed grief and denial. The balanced Stoic response is to first acknowledge the natural feelings of fear and disappointment. Then, they use logic to separate the event from their judgment about it. They'd say, I lost my job, and that's tough. But this doesn't mean I'm a failure. I'm going to let myself feel this hurt for a moment, and then I'm going to focus on what I can control. Updating my resume, reaching out to my network, and planning my next move. They acknowledge the wound, bandage it, and then move forward with rational action. This is the true power of Stoic logic. It isn't a tool for building walls around your heart. It's a system for training your mind to be both strong and open. It's about moving through the world with clarity and purpose, not with a fragile, forced numbness. If any of this hit home, and you've ever felt that hollowness while trying to be unshakable, tell us about it in the comments. What's your experience with Stoicism been like? And if you want to explore more philosophy for a better life, don't forget to like and subscribe. In the end, the goal of Stoicism was never to become an unfeeling statue. The ancient Stoics were leaders, friends, parents, and partners. They understood that being human means feeling things. Marcus Aurelius's stepfather, Antoninus Pius, once saw Marcus weeping after a teacher had died. When an aide tried to stop him, Antoninus said, "Let him be human for once, for neither philosophy nor the empire takes away natural feelings. The point isn't to erase our humanity, but to perfect it. It is to grow our ability to feel deeply, to love, to grieve, to connect, while still being the master of our own mind." It's the difference between being a brittle statue that shatters under pressure, and being a warrior with a soul, someone who can feel the heat of the battle but is never consumed by the fire. That is the true strength Stoicism offers. That is the power worth pursuing.